to 9. Our conversation with Wilson Goko continues. We're talking about laws and regulations governing fire safety in Kenya. So the minimum requirements that you've read here, I mean, you can just think many public places do not meet these requirements, right?
Yes.
If we just want to focus on school, because Hillside and Russia is still fresh in our minds, and the fear among very many parents is just, schools and the safety of their children. So then, and you said, it's just a small percentage of our schools would actually be found to be fit. So who should enforce this? We know it's DOSH, right? Do they have the capacity to enforce this? And should it be enforcement more or awareness creation more? Which one should come first? Are these school communities aware that these are the minimums? Does a school principal or a school board of management know that when it comes to fire, these are the minimums that we ought to have and we should always adhere to them?
According to my reading of this manual, all those issues have been addressed here. The board of management should set up a committee with the mandate of safety. Head teachers should take certain minimum actions to ensure the safety of the pupils, students, and the teachers. Awareness, there can always be more awareness. Awareness should come first before you remove the big stick. And that's why I was saying, like in schools, when I was a young boy, we used to do fire drills. That was many years ago. I don't know that fire drills are being done in 2024.
Are they really?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I was in primary school more than 40 years ago, and we were doing fire drills. That brought a safety culture in that generation. So awareness should come first. Enforcement is always the last option. Awareness will drive the safety culture more than the stick.
There's also the reason. And that I think is why we have a regulator, isn't it? But then I have to go back to the capacity question. Is that, does the regulator then have enough capacity? If we're talking about all areas where anybody works, right? And let's look at schools where we have 40,000 registered schools in Kenya. Does the regulator have capacity to ensure and enforce these standards in 40,000 schools in Kenya today?
I'll speak as to what I know. What I know is that we are over 100 approved, licensed fire safety auditors in Kenya. Experts who traverse the entire nation doing this on a daily basis. So with that kind of number, it is not enough. 100 plus is not enough. We need more. So that is why we were even brought on board as independent people, but approved and licensed by the government. So DOSH is doing what they can and what they should do. They've got people out there to do these audits.
I'm sorry, Wilson, I don't think they're doing what they can. There's still a lot more. So, like you've said, they've only licensed 100. For all the workplaces, registered and unregistered in this country, 100 fire auditors is a drop in the ocean. If you just think about schools alone, over 40,000. If you just think about government offices, starting from a chief's office all the way to State House, those are many offices. Think then in the private sector. Think about public places, markets and all. Think about homes, because homes are also workspaces. All those are too many. But beyond money and having a permanent staff in the office, maybe there are other ways in which DOSH could think of enforcing, and that's awareness creation. How much of that do we see? And I'm not asking you, I'm just posing it out there. How much of it do we see when school heads meet for their annual school principals, whatever? When the Council of Governors is meeting for their biannual annual governors conference, when all these are meeting, when do we see DOSH there? Because that's one place they come and say, listen, people, this is what the law says. This is what we encourage you to do. And you can start from this level, go beyond this to that level. And we can reach out, you can reach out to us for further assistance. Do we see them doing that?
Well, I'm here today.
Well, yes, you're here today.
Yes, I'm here today, and approved by DOSH.
I'll give you
and
that,
it is in my role as a fire safety auditor. and also secondary to that as an advocate of the High Court, to educate and inform my fellow Kenyans about these things.
Okay.
So we have started, and you've given me this good platform to do that. Thank you very much.
I want to look at something very basic in terms of detection. You mentioned that every space, of the list of things that you mentioned, one of them was fire detectors.
Yes.
We have too many fires. Again, I'm sorry, but I'm going to stay with schools.
Yes.
We have too many fires happening. I see you looking around for fire
Yes,
detectors.
We have.
There's one there. There's one there. So that there must be one in these spaces, right? So what exactly does a fire detector do? And there's a reason why I'm asking. So
Okay.
please go ahead.
There are two types of fire detectors. There's a smoke detector. It detects smoke particles and then sends a signal to a control panel, which subsequently sends a signal to bells and sirens and gives a warning.
Okay.
So detection, signal, warning.
It's loud, we will hear it,
Yes,
then
and
we can now...
out.
Okay.
There's a fire. Then there's a heat detector. It detects a rapid rise in heat.
Yes.
From maybe room temperature to 68 degrees in
Yes.
a matter of seconds. It does the same thing, sends a signal to the panel, to the bells, fire.
Okay.
So those are what detectors do.
Okay, so that's that. Park that. Now, during a fire drill, I remember also when I was in elementary school that we do, fire, then we'd all go to the flag. We knew where we would go. There was a fire drill.
Fire assembly.
Yes, there was a fire assembly point. We knew where everything was. But we knew that because we would hear the signal, and we knew that when we heard the signal, this is what we were supposed to do.
Correct.
Right? So during a fire drill, now when we have these fire detectors, I assume that the fire marshal or the, I don't know what you would call them, the people
Yes,
who
fire
are
marshal
fire
is a
marshals,
good-
okay, they are the ones who would tell you, everybody, should you hear this sound, and you would actually play it during the drill. Should you hear this sound, this is what you are meant to do.
Exactly.
Whether you are in class, whether you are sleeping in the dorm,
Correct.
whether you are somewhere in the field, whatever.
Correct.
This is what you are meant to do in the event that you hear this sound.
Correct.
So all of this activity happens during a drill, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in a school, Endarasha Hill in Nyeri County,
Yes.
if there was regular drilling,
Yes.
this fire drill,
Yes.
whether children were asleep, whether workers were, etc.,
Yes. Day or night.
if there were regular drills and if there were fire detectors, it does, and if there were all of these things that you talk
Yes.
about, and I'm saying if very painfully
Yes.
here, that in the middle of the night, the signal goes off. Children would have been able to de-escalate, get out of their rooms, go to the fire assembly point,
Yes.
and the severity of damage would have been lower.
Correct.
Is that what we're saying?
Correct. Precisely.
Okay.
The fire drills are statutory minimums. You must do at least one every 12 months. Record the findings and take action on what you find. Education and awareness comes before the drill, so that they can know how does it sound, where are we going, who are the fire marshals. Your fire marshal here told me she has a vest so that she can be easily identifiable, and then she will lead us and marshal us to the fire assembly through the exits. All these things are supposed to be audited on an annual basis, and it is an offense not to have your audit done on an annual basis by an approved auditor who is approved by DOSHS. So they can come and ascertain your level of preparedness and your level of compliance with the minimum safety regulations. So training, I told you there's a syllabus written by DOSHS for fire safety marshals, fire safety training. It's a curriculum which you must do every 2 years. There's one for first aiders, it's annual. There's one for health and safety committees, which is done, as the Act says, from time to time, which means when you have maybe significant changes in your committee, significant movement in and out, but you must form a committee if you have 20 or more employees, and they must receive the 4-day OSH committee statutory training minimum, so that they can know how to discharge their functions and how to monitor all these things that we're talking about. Yes.
Can you have, in the boarding schools now, so we're talking about, if we're in a high school, we're talking about children between the ages of 13 and 18.
Yes.
Can you have children as I don't know,
No.
minor marshals or somebody who would be able to send an alarm, wake up others,
Actually,
prefects.
Actually, the prefects can form part of the support team, but we want these duties, even if you look at the manual, are being delegated to the head teacher and staff.
Okay.
But co-opting, I remember in high school you also have 18-year-olds, adults who are now there, maybe in the fourth form or such. Co-opting those head boys and prefects to act as marshals is not a bad idea. Those are people who are on the spot, will be with the boys or girls in the dorm when the incident happens. That's an excellent idea, and I think it can work excellently if practiced and awareness is brought and a lot of training is done to empower that group, because they are the first responders, so to speak.
Yeah.
Before the matron or the whoever comes from their house, those are... So yes, some of these young men and young women are very able, and they're adults.
And they're leaders.
And they're
leaders
leaders
anyway.
And they can do it. It's not rocket science. Yes.
When these tragedies occur, we see the Ministry of Education, and now this recent one, the Ministry of Education is working with the Ministry of Interior to conduct an audit
Yes.
of the safety standards in our schools.
Yes.
Is that the right approach?
It is, provided they also co-opt DO, SHS, and other relevant stakeholders. It is important to get all the experts involved in this process. There is no monopoly on knowledge for fire safety. We're not claiming to have it, but we are saying if we all sit around, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Labor, we are all stakeholders.
But labor should be included.
Must be
included. Right?
It is.
So in the absence of Ministry of Labor and DOSHS, then these audits are not going to be helpful.
They will be helpful, but they will lack a vital and key contribution by the experts in that field. When you write a manual like this, you should have people from DOSHS having input. You should have other people from Red Cross and other agencies we have mentioned also having input. But it is not correct not to have DOSHS not involved. They are the regulator of safety in workplaces in Kenya.
Should DOSHS take the lead in these audits? Right now, there are audits in these schools because we are auditing whether, because of what we've seen in schools, we want to check whether our schools are actually fire ready.
Yes.
Right? Should the regulator be taking the lead in this?
I think they must be in that group. As to who takes the lead, that is moot. Because what we are trying to achieve here is upgrading our safety standards.
Yeah, but the law gives this regulator the power and authority to be the one who's a say on matters of safety, fire safety, and health safety.
That way, then the answer is yes.
So the job of the regulator is to do exactly that, to go across the country and to check and audit the safety and enforce the law, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I put it to you that then it's the regulator who should be leading this, can be supported by Ngaos. Then Ngaos can then also get the endorsement of the Ministry of Education so that the school heads are aware that this is happening and they'll be the ones to implement anyway. But it should be the regulator who is doing an audit. The report that should be taken to the president, because they promised the report to the president, should come from the regulator. The law gives that responsibility to DOSHS.
That is your view. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Do you see anything wrong with it?
No, I don't. But that should be, I think those are the messages then that should be amplified at this point, isn't it? Because, again, I mean, somebody said another thing, and we know that coming to around this time, leave accidents aside, but we're getting into, it's what they call fire season in schools. It is. Because we go towards exam period.
Yes.
So you have a pre-dereliction.
Makes it even sadder.
Absolutely. To that point where Lord, we know that these things will happen, but then we cry after the fact, right? So
That's why I say the Ministry of Education.
I don't know. I find
The
it so
Ministry of
difficult
Education
to-
should not be doing this work. Okay? The Ministry of Education is the workplace. Wilson, if there are incidences of fire here, who will investigate and who will check that now, going forward, this workplace is safe? It is you, isn't it?
We
We can't tell
people
Flora.
like me.
We can't tell Flora, our fire marshal,
No.
to now come and start
no,
checking. So is the standard group center now safe? Shouldn't.
It is an auditor to come and audit the
Very
fire
good.
safety
Yeah.
compliance.
Ministry of Education should not, therefore, be doing this audit. It should be supporting. Flora will accompany you as you audit. Get my point now?
I get your
Am I
point.
seeing? Am I getting?
I get your point.
So now when we go back to that horrific number that you've given us, because for me it's horrendous, that when we talk about 10%, maybe you said even 10%.
That is my personal opinion
Yeah, yeah.
based on my experience and roaming around the Republic. It
Wilson,
is not
even if-
accurate, but
Of course.
that is my opinion.
Wilson, even if we said that 50%,
Let's say 10.
let's even say 50%.
Not good enough.
It's not good enough. Let's say that 50% of the schools in this country, and again, you know why I'm staying on schools.
Yes.
Let's say that 50% of the schools in this country are fire ready. That is not enough. 50% will take you nowhere with an education. It'll take you nowhere with performance at work. It'll take you nowhere with even when you're born as a baby and the doctor holds you up upside down and says, yeah, this baby's operating at 50%. No, 50% will take you nowhere. So are we serious then about the things that we're talking about? Or are we ready to bury 21 boys every time? Are we ready to do that? And I think those are the questions that we must ask that will then fuel our action towards saying that, you know what, no, 100 fire auditors who are doing some painstaking hard
100
work,
plus.
like yourself,
Yes.
who are doing this difficult work, is nowhere near enough. That we know that there are standards, but we don't keep them. They have been set, but they're not kept. And then we bury children, or that we have destruction, wanton destruction all over the place. We shouldn't have to wait for disaster to strike
Do you know what
to do
safety
something
law is
about.
called in the past? When I was doing my studies, it's called tombstone legislation.
Wow.
Sometimes when things go wrong, people die. When people die, the public and the government lose their appetite and legislate. So you'll always find when there is maybe school fires, something. If in Europe,
up with a
when
new
there was
law.
train fires, stadium fires, you
Yeah.
have heard of in football stadia, people dying, nightclubs.
Yep.
This is unfortunately globally. Legislation regarding safety usually comes after deaths. It is
Yeah.
not unusual. It is the saddest thing I've encountered, which is why I stopped the practice of law, mainly to concentrate on this area. Let me prevent rather than sue.
Yes.
That's my approach.
Yes.
Why am I suing you? Why are you doing the wrong thing? Wacha tukusaidie kwanza.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Court is the place of last resort. Let's do it. Put the cart where it belongs.
Okay. Before the horse.
Yes.
Wilson, thank you very much for today. We'll ask you to come again.
Yeah.
So we
I
can
will
create
be
more
happy
and more
to
awareness.
come here as many times as you would have me.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Wilson Goko is a fire safety auditor, licensed by the regulator in Kenya and approved by the regulator in Kenya, who is the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services at the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. Keep it here for more conversations in the next hour. It's 9 a.m.